Hello and welcome back to Beyond the Borders. Today I will be taking you off to the Middle East, aka the world's most messed up region, where I will investigate you to a tale of two autocrats, one who takes his country backward, the other who takes his country forward. Now, when you look at Saudi Arabia and Turkey, you would think that, well, one is a fairly progressive Islamic society where women have a lot of rights, and the other is a fairly rigid, actually extremely rigid, Islamic society where women have no rights at all. Well, on this, the last few years have shown that you would be misguided. In fact, the countries may be starting to reverse, and I will therefore explain how that is happening. Our tale begins in 1954, where Recep Tayyip Erdogan, someone who has been received and shown rather poorly on this channel before, was born to a conservative, pious Islamic family in Istanbul. Of course, in 1954, Turkey was a deeply not pious and conservative Islamic society. In fact, the whole apparatus of the Turkish state were deep followers of Ataturk, Mustafa Kemal Ataturk, considered the founder of modern-day Turkey after the Ottoman Empire collapsed in 1918, his program of secularized westernization. This meant several programs, including a headscarf, which Islamic women usually have to wear, ban in all universities and all public employment. He also scrapped the Arabic alphabet and replaced it with the Latin alphabet. And finally, he allied Turkish foreign policy very closely with the United States, and the two countries would remain allies until, well, not that long ago. So Erdogan, when he was young, decided to leave his football or soccer career and attempt to slay the dragon, which was scrap Turkey's secularist institutions once and for all. Erdogan's struggle to slay the dragon culminates in 1998 when he is sent to jail, yes, to jail, for writing a deeply provocative poem basically criticizing Turkey's secular Islamic values. So, on that note, I will take you further to the south, to the royal palace of the House of Saud, where Prince Mohammed bin Salman al Saud is born sometime in the 1980s. I think 1986, but don't count me on that. And instead of jail, in fact, forget jail, the Saudi royal family is the epitome of wealth. In fact, to say the Saudi royal family is wealthy would perhaps be the biggest understatement, ever. Flashy cars, flashy clothes, big mansions in France, chateaus. Yeah, you name it, the Saudis have bought it. And so thus they are very, very wealthy. So they will never, ever go to jail. In fact, you'll hear about this later. When they do go to jail, they go to jail, or house arrest, at the Ritz-Carlton in Riyadh. Ha ha! Meanwhile, all this wealth hides a very dark foundation for which the Saudi state was built on. And of course this was called Wahhabism, a very, very strict form of Islam where women have no rights at all. Usually they can't even forget the headscarf. You sometimes can only see their eyes, or worse, you don't see any of their face at all. Why would I want to live there in a Wahhabi state? It just looks terrible. And on top of that, any form of Western cultural influence at all was, quote, haram, which in Arabic means forbidden. Thus, by the time that these two men came to power, the two states were so radically different that there was no way that they could ever meet up. Well, on that, you would be wrong. Our tale continues after Erdogan is released from jail and finally becomes the coveted Prime Minister of Turkey. And of course, after many failed attempts, mainly due to deep resistance from the Turkish bureaucracy and the Turkish military and the Turkish judiciary, all of which remained deeply committed to Ataturk's ideas. He finally, in 2013, repealed the notorious and very unpopular headscarf ban. But sadly, well, at least sadly for him, not sadly for Turkish women, the dragon was yet to be slain. Meanwhile, in the last year, the tale of Saudi Arabia and Prince MBS, as he is called, not the full Mohammed bin Salman, that's just too long, and besides, all the news media outlets call him MBS, so I will too. MBS, after purging many of his relatives into the Ritz-Carlton, he finally does a lot of things that are quite popular with the Saudi population. First, he curtails the rights of the notoriously hardline religious police, those that enforced Wahhabism, and basically everyone hated. Then he repealed Saudi Arabia's even more notorious ban on women driving. Okay, now repealing a ban on women driving and allowing them to just simply get behind the wheel and go from point A to point B may not sound radical, but if you don't know, Saudi Arabia for decades was really notorious for banning women driving. And now to repeal that is a sign that things are changing pretty dramatically. On top of all that, he has now promoted women to various high positions in his government, including the head of the Saudi Stock Exchange. Who would have known? Finally, well, this may not sound all that progressive, but he did it anyway. He has actually allowed, I think, either UFC or WWE Wrestling, yes, WWE Wrestling, to come to Saudi Arabia and perform. Now, talk about a culture shock. So why did MBS choose to go on this path? Well, he must have realized that oil, Saudi Arabia's main export, would not last forever, and if things kept going as they would, there would surely be a crash and turmoil and bad things would happen. So he realized that only economic growth in forms other than oil could move Saudi Arabia ahead. And this growth could not be achieved unless the Wahhabist inclinations were reined in severely. Meanwhile, while MBS modernizes Saudi Arabia, Erdogan takes Turkey back into the Dark Ages. So, he has recently said in an interview that women are, quote, not equal to men. Oops. Yeah, he just alienated half the population there. Not a smart idea. I would not suggest that. Then, he has, well, granted, the headscarf ban was all right, but then he has also created these Islamic schools to teach pious children. In fact, 1 in 8 Turkish middle school students now attends one of these. What are these schools called again? Oh, Imam Hatip schools that teach a very hardline, almost Wahhabist version of Islam. So he's not learning his lesson. Not at all. Sorry. And furthermore, in the Turkish school curriculum, the class on, quote, jihad has been introduced. Yes, you heard that right, jihad. Well, in Islamic doctrine, jihad is not always about violence against non-believers of Islam. It can be peaceful, but to teach it in school maybe isn't the best idea. In fact, it sounds about as good as Chairman Mao giving Chinese students little red books in the 1960s. If you read your history, you'll know about that. So there we have it. Our tale, well, is not fully concluded. In fact, we do not know the future of Turkey and Saudi Arabia. I mean, granted, while MBS is likely to rule for a very long time, Recep Tayyip Erdogan is an old man. Well, not old, his health is not good, and who knows what may come after his death. Thus, our tale is not quite finished. In fact, it will probably never be finished, as history never does finish, contrary to what many historians have said. New camera angles. Whoa, okay.
All right, Sam. Oh. Let me move over here. All right, Sam.
Questions.
Your first question. What part of the body produces insulin?
What? This is not this is not related. No.
Well, it could be any question. Watch out.
Any question. What part of the body produces insulin? Oh dear. I'm not an expert on I'm not an expert on this. I never went to medical school, so I'm sorry.
Pancreas.
Oh, I knew that. I knew that. I knew that. Okay, but still, don't ask questions like that. Well,
All right. In a standard pack of cards, which king is the only one not to have a mustache?
Oh no. I think the king of hearts.
That's correct.
Yeah, I knew that.
Whoa.
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah, hearts is the most effeminate suit. So, of course, that would only be logical.
All right. Oh, goodness gracious. All right. Which planet did Superman come from?
Krypton.
There you go.
Yeah, that's easy.
Which Shakespeare play features a brooding Danish prince and his girlfriend
Hamlet.
Ophelia?
Hamlet. Okay, I think that's enough on questions. Four
more
is
question.
enough. Well, okay, one more. Fine.
These are all really easy for you.
Okay, well, how about just tell me?
In which country were the 2014 Winter Olympics?
Russia. Okay, enough. Okay.
It's a god of what is the god of war?
Aries.
There you go.
Okay. Comment. Of course, comment below, just like every other video, and ask any question you want, like literally any question. And thus, in the next video, we will take you to, as I hinted at before, China, a very, very big country. And we will have a very, very special guest to help with our video. So, bye-bye!